Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the TrekCulture podcast. I am Sean Ferrick.
I'm Paul Sutherland.
And this week we are joined by a very special guest. How are you getting on, Pedro? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Been doing good as much as possible.
Excellent. This is cool. I think because that's the thing. This is the first episode where we can't say we are surviving 2020. We have to come up with something else to say now.
Yeah, exactly. It took me a while to think about something, but the thing is, I'm doing fine. That's the most important thing. I think it's we just came out of a rough year, so all things considered, I'm doing pretty good.
Unfortunately, we only have one more episode of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah.
Although depending on where you live, you have lower decks to look forward to.
Yeah. That's the bright side of it.
Yeah, and actually, what is it? There is a Tide, which was last week's episode. That's the right title, right?
It is the right title, and I get why you're asking as well. Yeah,
it's a very Star Trek-y title. I feel like there might have been 3 or 4 episodes with a similar title, but that was actually counting the movies and the short treks, the 800th installment of the franchise.
Yeah, I saw that. That's crazy.
I love that as well, because not only is it obviously the 800th, but directed by Jonathan Frakes, keeping it in the family.
Yeah. Again, with the nice coincidences, given the fact that Discovery was supposed to have premiered earlier. I guess the 800th installment would have been a Lower Decks episode if the initial schedule had been stuck to. Okay, but so about There Is a Tide. I actually really enjoyed the episode. I thought that it was kind of like counter to a lot of my criticisms of the season overall. I really appreciated the simplicity of the storytelling. What all did you think?
Pedro, you go first there.
All right. I made some notes.
Oh, right.
Overall, I really liked it, the episode. It's directed by Jonathan Frakes. So generally, as a rule, everything that Jonathan Frakes directs, I love. That's been the trend for me.
Does that include Star Trek Insurrection?
Yeah, well,
I love Insurrection. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I need to.
Look. It's. I like the movie. All right. It's not the worst. I think Nemesis is probably a lot worse than Insurrection, in my opinion. So yeah, I stand for my point.
Okay, continue. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. About the episode, many great things, many great points. One of the best things about it is we finally see the crew working together, which I love. It's something that we've been, people been asking to see more of the crew, like the background characters, since the first season of Discovery. And we got little tiny bits here and there, but nothing really. And this is also, it's not like it's a huge character development episode, but we still got to see the crew working together and everything, and a lot of the background characters shine. And I think that's one of the huge points of the episode. I really liked that aspect of it. I don't know how in depth I should go, because I want everyone to share their opinions also. I don't want to list the whole thing that I...
Yeah, well, Sean, why don't you tell us, obviously, if we've been keeping up on our ups and downs, we know your opinion, but have you had any changes of heart or anything?
I'm going to introduce a curveball into my reviews for this week for Star Trek Discovery, and that is, I feel like they really should have mentioned the burn this week. And I feel like Sean, make up your mind. Sorry, Pedro, every single week I have criticized the burn on season 3 of Discovery. It has just been
I saw the episodes.
And I was just like, but now that we know what the burn is, I get, but you see, I suppose to kind of contradict myself a little bit, this episode kind of went at more or less breakneck speed. To kind of stop to go, Dear Admiral Vance, here we have, the reason for everything. Yeah, where would you have kind of shoved that in? And also considering the fact that Discovery's crew are all prisoners. But overall, I liked the episode. I did. I definitely had, I suppose, if you've seen the ups and downs, I had more ups than I had downs for. I enjoyed it overall. Jumping to the very end of the episode, for you both, okay? I have something I deliberately didn't mention on the ups and downs thing because I'm letting it kind of percolate in my head. What do you think of the last minute inclusion of Zora and I think it's the .23 robots?
I didn't like it very much, to be honest.
Get out of here.
I mean, I'm sorry. Here's the thing. I get that the robots are cute and everything, and I root for them, but I just felt like that wasn't exactly the kind of ending I was expecting, because I was expecting more of like the crew trying to come up with crazy ways, like making crazy science and everything to take over the ship. And now it's like they're just gonna use the robots because they have the AI on their side. So it's just a huge advantage. And to me personally, I didn't like that, because I was to that point, I was really looking forward to seeing like the crew shine and make all those crazy sciences and everything. And I don't know, let's blow up a shuttle and stuff like that, and now it seems like everything is going to be more obvious. They're going to just use that to their advantage, and things are going to go in a more, let's say, predictable route. That's how I felt about it. Anyway, it's one of the few things on the episode that I actually didn't like very much.
So I really liked the inclusion of the DOTs. They've been kind of like teasing about their, involvement all season. So that did feel like a payoff to me. And the fact that we're finally getting back to the Zora thing, despite even the Burn's been like this lingering mystery over the course of the season that they mention almost every episode. But the Zora sphere data plot line has been really like far and few between as far as like when they actually touch on it. So I appreciated that we're back here and it's going to play a big part in like resolving the season. But to your point about the crew banding together and kind of getting the Reese, and Bryce getting to little moments to shine. I really appreciated that much more than the forced hugging and awkward dinner conversation we had earlier in the season. That was like the big character development episode, but this feels more natural and more actually substantial to me than that. So yeah, I get your point, and I maybe my opinion about the involvement of the DOTs is kind of shifting now that you mentioned that they might rob the spotlight from the crew.
Here's the other thing too. No, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Well, the other thing is this. It's like, I also get your point, because they did kept showing the little robots. I can't remember the names. It's DOTs?
Yeah, DOT-7s were the 23rd century versions, and I think they're DOT-23s now.
Right.
I think so, yeah.
But they kept teasing that, and I understand that it's great to see the storyline with Zora, coming back to light again. But here's the thing: they're doing this in the episode before the last episode. It seems so rushed to me personally. If you're gonna tell the story, I personally think it's better to just take your time and, let's say, continue next season, for example, than to just put everything in these two final episodes. The robots came in the last episode, and the last episode just made the Osyraa a different character, so we have that to think about as well. A lot of changes, in my opinion, last minute changes. The Burn wasn't mentioned for the first time ever, so it's we were in the mirror universe just a while back, so it keeps jumping from place to place, and I think that it would be better to just take the time and develop the stories in the long run than to just place them all together in this final episode, which I'm honestly not sure how they're going to pull it off, because it seems like too much for just one last episode. But anyway, that's how I feel about it. Anyway.
I'm very much on the same page as you, Pedro. I mean, I am enjoying it, but I feel this season, and we've talked about this, I am really enjoying season 3, but this season, more so than season 1 and more so than season 2, would benefit from more episodes. This would benefit from the longer, maybe the 26 episodes format of, say, The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, because there is so many different ideas floating around. This idea of the sphere data and Zora, this is why I didn't mention, because I don't want to give them a down, because I love Zora and Annabelle Wallace, this beautiful voice. I'm so happy to hear that she's back. But why did we get it in the closing moments of the penultimate episode of the season, when, you know, we could have had, I suppose maybe devil's advocate, they might be building her up for season 4, which I think they kind of have to, because I'd be like, they couldn't possibly resolve it all in one episode. And that's not a criticism. That's if they manage to do it, teach me how to write television, guys, because wow.
Yeah, they bit off a lot this season with the Emerald Chain, with the Sphere Data / Zora, with the Federation being in tatters, with the burn, with Adira and Gray. So unfortunately, it seems like maybe we're not going to get the big episode that we were hoping for that might tie into Calypso and really explain how the ship, you know, is in the state it's in that short trek versus how it's, you know, ended up this season. We're probably not going to get all the material that we really hoped we'd see out of this season. But I think if they just left Zora for season 4, that to me would be a big disappointment. So I am happy that they are at least circling back. Hopefully this isn't it for Zora. Like, hopefully, you know, this week's final episode of the season doesn't, like, you know, just wrap everything up in a nice bow.
I think obviously, we were joking just before coming on that a lot of my predictions have been wrong every single time, but I do predict a cliffhanger ending, I think, for the season.
That's interesting.
Both
might be
seasons
totally
prior,
wrong.
You know, I mean, both seasons prior had cliffhangers of some sort.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose, actually, I was going to say, oh, maybe. No, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, Discovery vanishes into a wormhole, fairly large cliffhanger, and the arrival of the Enterprise. I still haven't recovered from the arrival of the Enterprise at the end of season 1.
I mean, you may be right, though. We might have like a best of both worlds type cliffhanger where it's, you know, in the middle of you know, something monumental going on screen. I kind of, you know, personally would rather that not happen, given how long we have to wait between seasons. But it would at least be a change in the way they've been, you know, concluding their seasons. So it might be interesting.
But the thing is also, I don't think they would do that because, you know, people bring this up all the time. It's a streaming show now, so it's not like in the time of TNG. The public has changed, and I think people probably wouldn't like enjoy waiting for, you know, a long period of time before getting the next episode, let's say, because the cliffhangers on season 1 and 2, they are cliffhangers, but the main story was finished.
Yes.
They
that's true. Yeah,
that's the point, you know. So the public they had that they could see the story through the start to the end. You know, the cliffhanger was more like a bridge. It wasn't a continuation of the story, and you know, and that's something that I think is really connected with the streaming world, because people want to see like, oh, that's the season, that's what happens in this season, and the next season it's another story or something like that, you know. And the point is, I don't think they would make a cliffhanger in the middle of the story, you know, so that people would have to wait a certain period of time before actually seeing how it ends. I don't think they would do that personally.
No, and I think I hope you're right. There's just so much content to get to in one episode this week. There's going to have to be there will inevitably be some strings that are left dangling. You know, one of the big things that we've been speculating about was whether or not the Federation is what it seems to be. And, you know, this week actually, I think it sort of like actually furthered that discussion a little bit, at least in my mind, because you got to see the relationship between the Emerald Chain and the Federation and how they compare and how they contrast. I guess I'll pose this as a question. Do either of you think that Osyraa's intentions aren't true to what she's saying?
Pedro, you go first there. I have my opinions.
All right. That's a good question. I think, I mean, it's hard to ignore the first impressions, you know, because the hologram, Eli, he said she was being truthful, but I just can't believe she's being truthful. You know, I don't see exactly where she would go with that, because I mean, obviously she would have to make a lot of concessions, which she did based on what Admiral Vance read on her document. But here's the thing: I don't think she's the type of character that would do that. That would just accept those concessions. And even if she did, she would have to deal with the Federation and all those ideals, which would certainly get in the way of her entire operation. So maybe she is truthful to the point that she's telling the truth, but she has plans for the future that aren't exactly what she's telling, possibly, maybe.
Okay, so for Osyraa in this episode, what I feel is that in a way, yes, she is being honest, but in a deceitful way. She's hiding things in plain sight, and I think she does want to unite with the Federation. I think she does want to, as she said herself, incorporate the symbol of unity by joining the Emerald Chain and the Federation. But I think she's doing that to give the Emerald Chain legitimacy. Whereas right now they are a band of crooks. And even though this episode has shown us that it is a much better organized band of crooks than we might have thought before, that there is structure to it, there is, I don't know if you would call it a judicial system, but there's cause to effect in what happens in the chain. I feel that it's still seen as the original Orion Syndicate. It's just got a massive green facelift, after 1,000 years. And the Federation, whatever it actually is, or whatever it turns out to be in the 32nd century, as she said, they have the clout that she can't buy. They were always the good guys. They were always, the Federation is fantastic. It's, it's wonderful. The sun shines out of wherever. And the Emerald Chain, they cannot bully, they cannot buy, and they cannot intimidate their way into that kind of standing. Only the Federation has that kind of standing. And so, yes, absolutely, she is telling the truth, in my opinion, in that she wants to unify, but in name only.
Yeah, I think I complained in an earlier podcast that I thought that Osyraa... I thought that Osyraa was kind of like mustache twirling and not very interesting to me, and I didn't want her to be the primary antagonist because I didn't think that she was very interesting. And I think this episode completely reversed that for me. It's an interesting choice to make her Orion instead of, an alien race that was, maybe less previously explored, or maybe somebody who's a little bit more threatening. She's the villain, so we're not really supposed to trust her. Like, we're supposed to question her motives, right? But, so like my initial reaction was, oh man, she's just like screwing with them. She doesn't really want to join the Federation. But as the episode progressed, I bought into it. And then in the ready room, which is supplemental material, and it's not really supposed to affect how you view the show, but they talked about it like her motives were pure, or at least genuine. Like, she really was saying that she wanted to join the Federation. So I'm gonna go ahead and take her word for it. Maybe this week will totally undo that. But I think it's more interesting if she really does want to join the Federation, and that's what her minions' mission is, even though they're like violent thugs, a lot of them. But then we have Aurelio, who, he clearly believes in her cause. And I think that that's like so Star Trek-y to have this like, this like ragtag group of, questionable, possibly evil dudes like wanting to be better. Like, I think that that's like exactly what the show needed, was like, a sort of like an uplifting villain.
I think that's probably how they will end the season, honestly. I think they'll make, I don't know, crazy predictions. I think they're setting up her to like be redeemed at the end. I think, they've made her like this shallow villain for most of the season, and then in the end they add that complexity. And I don't think it's like by accident. I think they probably want to do something with that. And as you mentioned, there's Aurelio. I don't know how. I think that's how you pronounce his name, right?
Aurelio, I think is what it was.
Aurelio, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they added him also to that episode, which makes the whole thing more complex again, and his relationship with Osyraa and everything. So I think they'll probably use that to like create some sort of uplifting ending.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but I think that would be my prediction, I think.
I think the only problem I have with that, because I think as written, if it were not for one scene, as written, you probably could have a redemption of Osyraa. You could have potentially a joining of the minds and a joining of the forces. But she did murder Rin in cold blood on the bridge in front of other people. And I don't know, I mean, she's hardly the first. Let's say she did turn out to be a good guy, right? She'd hardly be the first good guy to commit murder. Chew Benjamin Sisko in the pale moonlight. But, she did fairly shoot that man between the eyes for no particular, not no particular reason, but yeah.
Giorgio ate living Kelpians. Don't forget that. I haven't forgotten that still.
You can't forget that one.
I can accept that, honestly. I can accept that. Every time I see her, it's like, I cannot sympathize with this. It's not, I can't.
Yeah, off topic, that may be my least favorite moment in the entire franchise.
What, eating the ganglia?
Eating the ganglia. Yeah. It's just so dark and unnecessary, and the way Sonequa Martin Green plays that disgusted bite, that's just too much. I can take Remick exploding over eating the Kelpie.
Poor Remick, we hardly knew ye.
Yeah, same with Rin. Poor Rin. I think I could have used a few more episodes getting to know the guy before they offed him like that. But his death will probably serve a very good purpose in this upcoming episode, at least, as a motivating force.
About that, honestly,
I certainly think so.
Every time that I try to speak, I speak over Shem. I'm sorry.
It's my fault.
But what I was going to say is that about Rin, I also felt like obviously I was sad to see him go, but at the same time I felt like they did a good job with that. If they had to kill him, I like that. He stood up and he said, "I'm not afraid of you anymore." I felt that it was a really touching moment. I saw real bravery, I saw real courage, and not afraid of you anymore. I felt that it was a good way to go. I think he stood up for his values. And he sent a positive message, and it made the episode feel a bit more, let's say, heavy. But again, if it was my personal choice, I would probably not kill him because I just like the character.
Yeah,
I'm also glad to hear that you wouldn't kill him by choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paul, sorry, just to agree with what you said there, it did up the stakes. Do you both feel that it undid a little bit of Osyraa at the end of the episode? That what she had been going through, say, with Vance, developing as she did as a character and, depicting this other side of her, to then so brutally just and casually kill him. Do you feel that was a bit like, oh, all right then? Or are you kind of like, nope, I never bought into this new version of Osyraa, so this is absolutely fine for me?
Well, for me, it's neither. I thought that it reinforced who we already knew Osyraa was. Just because she's got an ulterior motive that happens to be, what we would see as like a positive one, doesn't make her any less cruel and horrible. I think it just makes her more interesting.
That's an interesting take. Personally, I think, it's a complicated question because I have to remember exactly what I felt when I saw this scene. But I think I was partially surprised, but also not that surprised because I felt like they were building up for something like that. And I have to say this, I love the exchange between her and Admiral Vance. when Admiral Vance tells her that, we can't just forgive you. All that we have to structure our future is our past. We have to uphold these ideals no matter what. And obviously that's really Star Trekish. I love that part of the episode. And so, I think that they kind of told a little story. It's Osyraa gets there, she starts talking like she wants something, she wants peace and everything. And then she starts talking to Admiral Vance. Admiral Vance tells her, that if she wants peace, she will have to sacrifice something. And, when it's time for her to sacrifice something in the name of that which she, says she wants so much, she doesn't want anymore. So it's like a little story. We saw her pretending to be something. Then when we poke her, we see who she truly is, and in the end, she reveals she lets everything out and kills Rin. I think it's like a little story built in within the context of the episode. And I think that that moment will probably play along with Aurelium. So the scene was constructed especially to give that little hint that he's starting to see who she truly is and everything. So, as I said, I think it's a small little narrative inside the greater narrative.
Yeah, I think that the scenes with Vance and Osyraa were some of the best of the series. However, I wondered if Vance intentionally torpedoed the negotiations. Like, it just seemed so sudden and so directed at her that he should have known that she would, storm out or beam out.
But this, sorry, Joe, you've hit a nail on the head there, Paul, because this, I think, ties into our, overall thing of, what is the Federation? What is all of it? What is Starfleet? Because one thing that I picked up on straight away is that why is Vance doing this negotiation rather than, say, a civilian? And allowing for the fact of, okay, maybe we want the military to handle this, right? We're making an assumption there, but let's say they want to go with that. That you've described it perfectly. I mean, at the most delicate stage of negotiations, he was like, this is great. This is good. Oh, you'll never see the light of day again. You're going to jail. You're going to Robotic, and there's only a beaming shield. You are screwed, Osyraa. Why would you bring that up at this point? And does he really have the experience to be doing this? You would assume so. As the CNC, you would just kind of say, all right, well, yeah, I guess so. But this is back possibly to the theory of how old is he really? Is he in fact a holographic construct? Who knows?
Is he Dadmiral or Badmiral?
I like both.
Yeah, he could be both. Yeah. But also the episode went out of its way to shield us from seeing the civilian government again. The first time we saw the Federation, I thought that was maybe just for like expediency of the storytelling. We don't want to have to like muddy the waters by having another group of characters to introduce you to. So, okay, the Federation Council's off somewhere else. This episode, she deliberately, specifically asks where the Federation president is, and Vance tells her, "Oh, I have the power to negotiate with you." So it raises the question in my mind, either is there a civilian government at all? Is there really a Federation president? Or is the Federation president like some big, exciting reveal that we're going to get next week? No? Sean's shaking his head.
So I have to say, I have bought into now the idea that there is no civilian government, that what we see is what we get, that inside that bubble is literally all that is left of the Federation in the 23rd century. Whether that is real in terms of, say, there are a bunch of ships parked away, still flying the flag of the Federation and relying on the reputation of the Federation, or whether it is something not too dissimilar to that relay station, and here dropped on their doorstep was the most advanced starship, of the 23rd century. So technologically, yes, it's out of date, but it has a spore drive. Great. It's the best thing ever. This is stunning. But why, again, sorry, I know I repeat myself, but why would something that is akin to the Orion Syndicate in the 24th century be any threat to these guys. And what have they been doing for 100 years? 100 years. So we're talking the distance between Kirk and Picard. Think of the technological advancements that went through that period. Yes, okay, the burn. I haven't forgotten the burn. But did everyone just down tools in every lab ever? You know? And sorry, so this all combines for me together of who is Vance really? What is the Federation really? Is there a civilian government? No, I think what you see is what there is. That's my little conspiracy theory there anyway.
Yeah, you know, and I think I think like a theme that I keep touching on is the value of speculating. It's almost impossible.
I'm sorry, Paul.
It's almost impossible to watch this show and not speculate. It is a mystery-driven show. It's asking you to speculate. However, I mean, last week I think I said straight up I was putting like fan theories into the airlock because I don't want to disappoint myself anymore. And I think that that's like a big part of my disappointment with the way the season's unfolded is the answers that were in my head were kind of more interesting than what the show's presented so far. So we can just take this at face value. You know, like I really tried to take Osyraa and Vance this week at face value, despite my like, why he has terrible negotiating tactics, you know? But, you know, yeah, it's totally possible that, you know, Osyraa mentions that the Emerald Chain was trading with Deep Space 253, which, by the way, very cool little reference to canon. And, you know, you mentioned the Sahil's relay station from You Are That Hope. You know, the Federation is still, it's not totally unified. Like, yeah, we've got this pocket of starships and, you know, of brass sitting out there in their literal bubble, while the rest of the Federation is still kind of trying to fend for itself. Is this really the Federation? You know, I would say no. Like, it's not the Federation. It's just one faction going around thinking it's the Federation. Or maybe not even going around. We really haven't even seen them leave the bubble. They've said that they went to Kaminar. They said that they were conducting missions over the course of the season, but we have yet to see that. And then another question that I think hangs over the show's head is we got to see the Voyager J. Where's the Enterprise? I just don't see a Federation without the Enterprise. And, you know, Voyager J was a nice way of like, you know, maybe distracting our attention from the fact that the Enterprise is missing, but the Enterprise is missing.
Pedro, what do you think?
You know what? When I first heard this theory, I wasn't buying into it, but now hearing you guys talking about it, I think it makes more sense than I previously thought. I mean, the one thing that I believe keeps me from fully like committing to this theory is that I don't think they would like add one more thing in the last episode. Like, look, this is no, we're all holograms. It's there's no government, there's no Federation president. You know, I mean, they could do that. I mean, Discovery is known to like come up with big surprises at unexpected times. But I mean, that would be too much. It's already too much. If we're gonna add one more layer, it's gonna have to be one hell of a good episode to tie everything together. But it's possible, you know. As I said, hearing you guys talking about it makes more sense than I, you know, thought it would.
I mean, it doesn't have to actually materialize the way we're saying it is, but I do think that like an actual, you know, philosophical question the show poses is, what is the Federation? Is that just a mindset? I mean, in You Are That Hope, Burnham specifically says the Federation isn't just warp drive and starships, right? So the Emerald Chain apparently forming a Congress and science institutes is attempting to be the Federation without the name, you know, the Federation. And okay, of course, Osyraa's tactics are not just questionable. They're, you know, like she's like killing people. So she's a murderer and a slaver and, you know, all these horrific things. But, you know, she does like, she has that exchange with Vance where she says, you know, you're a chain of planets and we're a federation of, I don't remember exactly what she calls herself, but she like, you know, she really does draw that parallel. And I definitely think that the show deserves credit for exploring, you know, what makes this like pillar of the Star Trek franchise. Like when you break it down, when you literally tear it down, what is it still?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the themes of the season. And I think it's not done it badly. I think like it's asked us to ask ourselves the question. And sometimes Discovery has been accused of telling rather than showing. And I think this season has suffered a bit from that. But if there was one positive I have to say about it is that it has asked the question without always delivering the answer. And that's what I want from Star Trek. That's what I want from a TV show is I want to think. And there are certainly episodes within the franchise, and there's how many TV shows out there that be like, you know, all right, strap in because you ain't going to think during this one. You're just going to experience the action. But I think this, because we only have the one episode left to go, this brings us quite nicely up to let's discuss news.
For over 2 centuries, you're listening to the Federation News Network.
So we have one episode left, not only in Star Trek Discovery Season 3, but also in this marathon 21 weeks of Star Trek that we've got, which I don't think we've ever had, which has been fantastic. And the episode title, as this is what I was referring to earlier on, Paul, is that they're almost being changed or released slowly each week. So we got That Hope Is You Part 1 as the premiere of the season, and now That Hope Is You Part 2 is the close of the season. So, first of all, interesting. It suggests that this entire season was a self-contained story and they're all going to wake up and it was all a dream.
Moving on.
Okay.
I hope not.
So I think, the news that we have. So we have the CBS released the images from the upcoming episode. So some are not massively spoilery. We did get one image of Adira in Zahian makeup. So obviously, as we know, beaming down to the planet, the holographic environment switches your race, which is not at all racist. But anyway, so you have human form Saru, you have Bajoran form Culber, and we now have Zahian form Adira. Now, combining that with the trailer, we also see Vulcan form Gray. And I think it's a safe bet to say that we're going to see Gray, if not in the flesh, then, you know, a holographic representation of Gray. But before any of that, and it's my fault because I just went to that, before any of that, the opening teaser of the episode has this beautiful shot of, you know, this Gormagander flying by. And that is my lovely way of going, Pedro, you're a VFX wizard, but please tell us a little bit about yourself, because I want to let the people who are watching here this evening know a little bit about you this evening.
All right. Well, I'd say, you know, first of all, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I've been a Star Trek fan since I was a little kid. You know, that interest, you know, expanded in some other areas. For example, my interest in VFX came, you know, from watching these shows. I kept having this idea. I'd like to live in the ship, you know, in the Enterprise and have this experience. So, you know, since I was a kid, I take like pictures of myself and Photoshop myself into scenes and everything like that. So, you know, that passion expanded in that area. And also I like to work with art. You know, I'm an artist. I work digitally and also not that much anymore, but I still sometimes work with traditional means. And mostly it's all Star Trek and science fiction in general. It's really what makes me passionate about all these endeavors that I hope to deliver in. That was a terrible way to finish the sentence, but all right.
That is okay, because what I want to say is to whoever's watching this on YouTube right now, you will see the header for our channel is this beautiful design that Pedro has done for TrekCulture as a channel, where he's done us all up as animated Lower Decks style cartoon characters. And honest to God, I have never been so proud of a picture of myself ever. Like, never mind all of my socials. That's just me. Never mind my face. I want that one.
Oh, you guys are too kind.
Well, Pedro, this season, especially the last couple episodes, have really highlighted some really beautiful VFX work. I had previously said that I thought that they were kind of intentionally hiding the Discovery refit, but lately it seems like they're really not shying away from showing it. This episode, we had a nice chase sequence leading up to the Federation bubble. We had the shots of several people ejecting into space out of Discovery. What are your thoughts on the refit and the way that they're showing it off in the current season?
All right, I actually have a number of things to say about that. First of all, I really like the refit. I think it looks gorgeous, in an aesthetic standpoint. But at the same time, I even posted this on Twitter, I think, a while back. I miss those opaque looking ships. To me, personally, they look a little bit more real. The Discovery ships, they all look very shiny and reflective everywhere. And the refit does look like that. But, as I said, it's an aesthetic choice. It's not a bad choice. It's just one that I feel somewhat nostalgic towards the more opaque looking ships we had from basically TOS until Enterprise. But, again, the refit, I absolutely love it. I think it's way cooler looking than the first Discovery. When we first saw the designs, I wasn't really, a fan of that. And as the series progressed, I did, grow to like the ship more. But I don't know, personally, I think it looks so much better like this. It looks more Star Trek-ish to me. The other one looked way too, I don't know what exactly the word I would say. It looked too dark and somewhat, you get the idea, you get the point.
Yeah.
It looks more hopeful and bright now. I like that.
Yeah, I think
I have potentially horrible news for you. Sorry, Paul. But,
I want to hear the horrible news.
The potentially horrible news then. So this is, obviously nothing confirmed. I'm in no way affiliated with CBS, but in the trailer for next week's episode, that first shot is original Discovery.
Yeah.
Now we don't
just
know
a
if that's
reused shot.
Well, it could well be. So this could be nothing. This could just be silly speculation, but we did a little bit of just a dive through previous trailers and they haven't done that before. So it could be. It could just be stock footage. Never mind. That's grand.
Yeah.
But it's the only thing I can think of because, again, I swear you'd think I have shares in Calypso or something, but I'm not ready to delete Calypso from what we know of Discovery. And in Calypso, that's original Discovery. So, but who knows? Who knows? But yeah, But yeah, now I feel really bad because you're like, I love Discovery A so much. Like, I'm sorry. There's lots of shots of Discovery A though.
Well, we didn't know that Discovery A could cloak until she cloaked.
That was a huge surprise to me.
Well, so maybe like she's got other spiffy features. Maybe she can reconfigure into her previous appearance for reasons.
Maybe it's holographic.
Maybe everything is holographic, like we've been saying.
That's absolutely
programmable matter. That's it's out there. It could be holographic.
I have a theory that programmable matter is holographic material because, like they said in Star Trek First Contact, switch off the safety features and a holographic bullet can kill.
Right.
Yeah.
So it can be solid. What's to say? And in 32nd century, that's much farther than we've ever gone in terms of what holograms can do or what technology can do. We know that because the Eon and the relativity, I think they're 29th century. The Braxton's time ship, where the Doctor gets his mobile emitter from. This is 29th century tech. So this is still 300 years beyond that. So I feel it would make sense other than, And this is Joe. I'm saying this to the pair of ye, but I'm also saying this to whoever is listening or watching this as well. I do sometimes catch myself going, look, it's just not realistic. As I'm talking about this futuristic show where shows travel faster than light, which I love, and I base my life on Star Trek. It is funny when you go, I don't know, that's a little bit like magic in the context of this show, isn't it? This programmable matter. But dilithium, totally fine with that.
I mean, like, look, we're talking about holograms and programmable matter. The holography in the Star Trek universe has been really sketchy, I think. You know, we could have a whole podcast on the Doctor's arc and whether or not the Doctor from Voyager is a real person. The show really does seem to want us to take him as a real person. So, I don't really know where I was going with that other than to say that, like, yeah, holographic matter is basically just a different version of programmable matter. It's just a different word for replicated matter. So, what's spoilers for the end of Picard, which hopefully all of us have seen this, but, Picard gets a new body, a new Golem body. And I think it was Alex Kurtzman gave an interview where he said, if they're like the difference between what did he say? My God, it was like, if there isn't a difference in the difference, then there is no difference, right? So, just because Picard has a new body doesn't mean that he's not still Picard. Just because, we tear our bodies apart and transport down to a planet in like every episode of Star Trek doesn't mean that we're getting killed and cloned every episode. So, maybe there's like no difference in holography. There's no difference. But if you want to chime in the comments, let us know what you think about whether or not the Doctor is sentient or not. I know this is a very old conversation. If you want to see a whole podcast devoted to that, let us know in the comments. If you want us to flesh it out the airlock, let us know. But I think it's time for Cargo Bay 101. Okay, so Cargo Bay 101. Pedro, are you familiar with this segment of our podcast?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so for those who don't know, we take anything from the Star Trek universe, put it in Cargo Bay 101, debate its merits, and if we agree, we flesh it out into space, and it either never happened in the universe or we're getting rid of it so it doesn't happen again. So, Pedro, you have something lined up for us, right?
Yeah.
All right,
well, here's the thing. when you guys told me about this and I realized I had to choose something to airlock, at first I thought it was going to be like a hard thing to do because I generally love a lot of things about Star Trek. But then I started thinking about it and things started popping up. So I had to choose, and I chose something that I think will probably most people will have no problem with, and I think it's valid. It's something that it's been bugging me for quite a while, and it's basically this. Somewhere on TNG, I think it's season 7. I might be wrong. There's this episode where future Alexander goes to talk with past Worf, and it's a whole thing about how Worf wanted his son to be a warrior and everything, and Alexander just didn't want to do that. He grew up to be a diplomat. I think he was a diplomat. And, based on the story he tells us, Worf would have died because he wasn't able to defend him and his father. So he came back in time and he was trying to make his younger self a warrior. And, I really loved that episode because it made, it made a point about Klingon society and how sometimes, behind a culture like a Klingon culture where all you see is just blood and challenges and everything, there are actual people that have to do the sciences and the talking and everything. And beyond that, there's also the story of Alexander, making his own path and becoming something else and everything. And also the fact that Worf, understands this. At the end of the episode, he says, I'm a different person now, the future will not be the same. And here's the thing. On DS9, Alexander is back and he's basically a warrior now. So that whole storyline was basically thrown out of the airlock. So here's the thing. I want to make things straight. I want to take this second version of Alexander and throw that story on the airlock, because the other one was much cooler, in my opinion. We have this huge potential for character development, and they just, oh no, he's just another Klingon. He wants to fight, just like anyone else. And I just hate that. I just hate that.
Oh my God, I couldn't agree more.
That's one of my least favorite arcs on Deep Space Nine, is the way they just trash Alexander's character, who was never a really appealing character from the get-go. But they just like assassinate the guy. Sean, I interrupted you.
They do. I'm just basically parroting you here. It's just so season 6 of DS9 is one of the overall strongest seasons of DS9, and in fact of Star Trek. That's my personal belief, right? But Sons and Daughters, that episode where they bring Alexander, is, in my opinion, the second weakest episode of the season. The weakest episode will always be Profit and Lace. We do not speak of Profit and Lace. Spoiler for a future Cargo Bay 101, guys. But Alexander, because there was other ways to bring Alexander into the show, which it made sense to bring him in, because obviously Worf is there. We're just never going to talk about your son. Totally fine. But to have him, as you say, to have him joining up and with such resentment toward Worf as well, with that they hadn't left the family situation with resentment, and for him to suddenly hate him so much, I just felt it was like, you've skipped several beats of a story here. And as you're both correct in saying, the Alexander that we got in DS9 was just a very, very poor character. I didn't think he was well written. I didn't think it was a good direction to go.
Well, I can't believe that we're having an Alexander conversation in Cargo Bay 101 and not talking about the obnoxious child Alexander, the higher, the fewer. But I definitely think we agree that we can flesh that out the airlock.
100%. Yep, I am totally. My finger is on the decompress button here. We all good? All right, Alexander. See you later, buddy. Pedro, thank you so much for joining us this week. Really, really appreciate it. This was a fantastic episode. Thank you so much again for your contribution, for your artwork. Please, if people want to reach out and find you online, which they absolutely should, where can they find you?
Mostly Twitter. It's where I post most of my stuff. It's at Pedro Starfleet, not the best name. The name is General Pedrowski, but the handle is at Pedro Starfleet. So.
Oh no, that is brilliant. Thank you so much. Obviously, you can find us at TrekCulture. Paul, of course.
Yeah, you can find me at Paul Sutherland. I also want to thank Pedro for his Captain Picard's Ready Room backdrop.
It's so cool.
I can send it to you guys later.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I think that's everything for this week, guys. We will be back next week for. It will be the final episode in regards to ongoing season, but of course it will not be the final episode of the podcast. So join us next week when we might have an idea of what's going to be coming next. But in the meantime, thank you so much, everybody. Pedro, thank you so much again.